Once upon a time, many years ago, man invented the car. A crude machine made of panels of wood with steel spoke wheels and solid rubber tyres, powered by an engine producing just 2/3 of a horsepower. But man was ambitious. He wanted to go faster and further. He wanted more power, and over the next 100 years he worked and reworked his ideas, trying and testing, until finally he created a monster. This is WRC's Greatest Cars, and in this show we're going to chart the history of some of rallying's finest, the fastest, the most celebrated, the most powerful, the mechanical heroes of motorsport. From the Escort Mark II, rightly famous despite its occasional eccentricities, to the real beast, the Group B era of 600 brake horsepower and four-wheel drive. On the way, we'll get a tour of one of the WRC's modern icons, the Subaru Impreza. But first, you could say that rally as a sport was born when the first Monte Carlo rally took place in January 1911. But city-to-city road races in France and other European countries can be traced back to 1894. By the early 1900s, immense endurance events and timed road trials were taking place all over the world, including the epic Peking to Paris, first run in 1907. During the Second World War, the mass troop movements across Europe led to the development of an increased road network. Once the continent had begun its recovery and rebuilding, motorsport found a new use for these roads. Car manufacturers got involved, and in the 50s, rally really began to boom. The 60s were a decade of partnerships. As examples, Ford teamed up with Lotus to create the Ford Lotus Cortina, and Renault partnered Alpine. All were trying to create the perfect rally car. But the car that seems to sum up the creativity and excitement of this era was one of Britain's finest, the Mini Cooper.
They just caught the imagination with the drivers you couldn't pronounce, and wonderful noises and smells, and just going so much quicker than anything that had gone before. It was the first quick car winning in the modern era, where special stages were everything. It wasn't gents and sports coats and ties, and the Mini changed all that. The Scandinavian drivers come in, and it won 3 or 4 Monte Carlo rallies and RAC rallies, so I think I'll plump for the Mini.
In total, this iconic little car won more than 25 events. But it was the creation of the World Rally Championship in 1973 which really turned rally from a pastime for amateurs into a prestige sport. The manufacturers were finally able to get budgets from their boardrooms to compete for a world title. Bigger budgets meant increasingly exotic cars. The 70s saw the Lancia Stratos, the Fiat Abarth 131, the Opel Ascona 400, and the Talbot Sunbeam Lotus.
It was at that time a very good car with a fantastic engine, and the car won the championship for the manufacturer, for Talbot, and we finished second with Jean Todt at the driver championship and co-driver championship behind Harry Vatanen and David Richards, and it was a very good car.
And the car that beat Guy Freckeland that year, a car that shaped rallying in the 1970s, the legendary Mark II Ford Escort, revered by many as the ultimate rally car. Debuting at the Circuit of Ireland Rally in 1975, the Mark II had a 5-speed gearbox. The engine generated 270 brake horsepower through a rear-wheel drive transmission. Along with its earlier evolution, the Mark I, the Mark II took 25 victories and inspired up-and-coming ralliers all over the world.
Ford Escort Mark II. Always loved the sound of the engine and never really driven a proper Mark II Escort, but done 2 rallies when I was younger back in Finland, and those were still one of the best rallies I ever did. Really enjoyed it. To have all that power and driving with only rear-wheel drive car, it's really good fun and spectacular.
Got a little bit of a soft spot for Ford Escort RS 1800s and things like that, only because when I was growing up, coming through school and so on, those were the cars that impressed me to get me into the job in the first place. So if you go back to the 80s, they got some fantastic cars there. You know, the Escort Mark II has to be one of the best.
It was a very good car and one of the classic, but for this type of ground, like in Sweden, or on all the gravel rallies, where the best drivers on those surfaces were driving this car. Really, at this time, the Escort was one of the best cars.
It was so controllable, it was easy to set up and run, the drivers could extract fantastic results and performances from them because of the nature of the car. It wasn't a particularly high-tech car, but it was strong, it was reliable, easy to drive, easy to service, and the way to drive it quickly was to set the car up sideways before the corner, power it through. The car was very nicely balanced. You could get through a stage very quickly that way. It's probably not the quickest way now, but the cars have advanced quite a bit, but in those days it was the machine to have.
Such a fantastic car to drive, so easy to drive. You could drive it so sideways, and to the point where you could be looking out of the rear side window and you still, wouldn't go off the road, sort of thing. So it was just a great all-round car. It delivered so many victories on things like the RSE rally. I think it was something like 10 years on the trot or something like that. So it was an incredible record. So it was obviously a great base platform of a car, and made a lot of people have a lot of victories, a lot of fun.
Until 2006, this was the only car with which Ford won world titles. They took the manufacturers and drivers' crowns with Bjorn Voldegaard in 1979, and in 1981 it was the turn of Ari Vatanen, co-driven by David Richards.
Very spectacular car, and that PD engine, that was a music to one's ears. It's very strange expression, but when you heard it in a dark forest, you heard that if you were spectating, you could hear the PD engine, from miles and miles away.
Open a an Escort, you almost wonder where the engine's gone. This little BDA engine sitting in the middle of the car there. So simple, live rear axle, struts at the front. There was the simplicity of the car was the great appeal of it. It was a fight in those days, just us against the Fiats, until of course four-wheel drive came along, and when the four-wheel drive arrived in the form of the Audi, that was the end of two-wheel drive and the end of Escorts in a competitive form.
And that's what's coming up after the break. We show you what happens when a bunch of engineers are told to throw away the rule book. Welcome to the heady days of Group B. Welcome back. No account of rally's greatest cars would be complete without the Group B era. These cars were in a league of their own, some of the most extravagant, extreme and downright excessive cars around. It was as though designers and engineers were given free rein to dream and then created their ultimate fantasy. Some say understandably that Group B made Formula One look dull.
Initially, it was a fantastic time to be going rallying because there were a lot of manufacturers involved building all these newfangled cars with new ideas. It was a bit of an engineer's paradise. The FIA freed up the regulations to allow evolutions on the existing Group B cars, which almost allowed Formula One cars for the forests.
Group B was launched in 1982 and promised to be radical. The main change related to the relationship between rally cars and road cars. Rules stipulate that rally cars have to be manufactured for the showroom as well as the stages. In Group B days, manufacturers only needed to produce 200 cars to be sold that were identical to those being rallied. 200 meant the sky was the limit in design, engineering and cost. This was the era that gave birth to four-wheel drive, the turbocharger, lightweight body shells and more horsepower in a rally car than ever before.
But then in that time when I was in the forest, there was the Group B cars. Of course, the sound of those cars and the speed and just the power they had, that was unbelievable. And I was thinking that, bloody hell, someday I want to get in and try how it feels.
It was a very exciting time for rallying, sort of 81 through to the end of 86 when they had the Group B car. It was so spectacular. because they had so much power. I mean, you're talking 600 horsepower, 650 horsepower, flame spitting, you know, no exhaust. I mean, but I think the big thing that really made them spectacular was just the absolute performance. Double the performance of what you've got now in a current World Rally car, but you didn't have anything like the handling characteristics of anything like the new car had.
For sure, at that time, very difficult car to drive with so much horsepower and not really the same system for the suspension and the diff than now, and it was a little bit dangerous car at that time.
A little bit dangerous, a little more than that. The fatal attraction to power at the expense of control proved lethal. In 1986, it took a number of lives. Just 4 years after its conception, Group B was banned. One of the cars from this era, though, became and remains beloved around the world. The Audi Quattro. It was the first rally car to use four-wheel drive competitively, and at one point it was rumoured to have over 600 brake horsepower, which is almost twice as much as today's World Rally cars. This was a real beast of a car.
It was like being hit by a 20-ton truck from behind when you left the line. The car just rocketed away compared with all the other cars. The power kept coming, the brakes, the handling, everything was just so much of a step up from everything else.
It has a lot of horsepower, and also was very wide with big aerodynamic things, so it was for me the most impressive car.
From my children on, I see that cars, I hear the noise, and it's still in my mind, the noise from the old days.
It changed the shape of rallying. It brought in four-wheel drive, turbocharging, tremendous performance. Everything else was obsolete overnight.
The Audi Quattro was such an incredible and dramatic step forward that other manufacturers could only choke in its dust.
During 1982, I was contracted to Ford to do a number of rallies with Malcolm Wilson, and also some development on the RS 1700T. And then I got a call from Audi to say, would I like to do the Welsh rally with Bjorn Valdegaard? Ford and Malcolm weren't doing that rally. I rang up Peter Ashcroft, the team manager at Ford then, and he said yes. And so did the Welsh rally with Bjorn Valdegaard, which we won, and went down to see Peter Ashcroft, and he said, well, tell me, what's it like? I said, frankly, Peter, I think you need to stop the 1700T because it's a long way behind the Quattro.
With drivers such as Walter Roll and Michelle Mouton, rally's only female winner, the Quattro gave Audi the Drivers' and Manufacturers' Championships in 1983 with Hannu Mikkola, and the Drivers' Championship in '84 with Stig Blomqvist. But like all the Group B cars, it was too hot to handle.
It was one of the most difficult cars that I've ever had to drive, but on the other hand, you derive great satisfaction from being able to master it. It was a very agricultural four-wheel drive system, which made it very difficult to drive. But and with a big turbocharger on there, so you had lots of lag, and you had no fancy differentials now like you have to make it easy. But I have to say, once you managed to master it, then again it was just a great fun and great satisfaction out of it.
The Audi were never a good car. At that time they were successful because of the four-wheel drive car. But from the point other manufacturers come with four-wheel drive, Audi was lost and never win any top result anymore. And so it was not a fantastic car. The engine was too much in front, everything was too heavy. But the history and the magic of that car was incredible.
The legacy the Audi Quattro left was all too apparent. After its introduction, no two-wheel drive car ever won the Manufacturers' Championship again. The Audi Quattro wasn't the only wonder to come from this period of imaginative and technically creative development. Some say that this is the greatest rally car ever. The Peugeot 205 T16.
was Peugeot 205. That was really, really amazing when it came, that the Group B car. It was the power and everything, and they were winning everything. That was really, really when I was young.
That pushed Group B right to the limits, and just the looks and the styling of the car was tremendous, and to watch people like Ari and Kankkunen drive the car.
Debuting in Corsica in 1984, it took only 3 events for the T16 to become a winner, and from then on the little Peugeot became the yardstick for all manufacturers.
It was a special car because at this time it was the only one car who was thought very cleverly, with a central engine, 4-wheel drive, a turbocharged engine, and it was really the first rally car made for rally at this period. I was test driver during the development, that means in 83, also in 84, and in 84 I drove for the first 3 rallies.
Ex-Peugeot sporting director Nicolas was part of what some call Team France, comprising of some of France's best, including the current Ferrari F1 Supremo, Jean Todt. And the man that would go on to design the all-conquering Citroën Zara, Jean-Claude Bocard.
You always find with manufacturers, they push the technology to the next limit, you know, and you can, if you get in a situation where you put a good bunch of designers together and a forward-thinking team who are willing to explore new age technology and development and all areas of car performance, aero and everything, that's what comes out the other end, and that's clearly how the Peugeot operation was working then.
At the beginning the car was difficult to drive because there was not power steering. It was very, very hard for the arm. Then in end of 84 we had the power steering, but we have got more power, which was a lot with a car around 1,000 kilos, and it was very, very fast car, and the corners came very, very quickly. So that was the difficulty, but it was so easy to drive and very, very easy. It was a fantastic car.
Taking advantage of its massive 500 horsepower engine, the 205 T16 secured 16 World Championship victories and 2 drivers and manufacturers titles in 1985 and 1986.
We had at this time the best driver in the world possible, Ari Vatanen, Kankkunen, Timo Salonen, French, Bruno Sabi, 1 or 2 times Michel Mouton. It was a dream team at this time.
And like Ford with the Escort, Peugeot's interests in the car weren't purely for sport.
Peugeot 205, not only as a fantastic car and a revolutionary concept, but also Peugeot 205, played an important role in rescuing Peugeot from that they were on the brink of the collapse at that time, and without 205, it would have gone belly up.
So thanks to the Peugeot 205 T16, not only did it save Peugeot from bankruptcy, it also gave us arguably one of the greatest rally cars ever. So we've had the best of British, the power from Germany and the agility from France. Where next but to the home of some of the most beautiful cars in the world, Italy.
I am very lucky, I have a really fantastic team and cars. In all Lancia, like in Stratos S4, Cero 37, after in Lancia Delta also. Lancia is, in rallying, is like in Ferrari in Formula 1, in people like very much in Italian team.
Lancia have many candidates for the greatest rally car. Before Group B, they had already been hugely successful with the Stratos. Emerging as a prototype ugly duckling, the wedge-shaped car powered by a Ferrari engine became a swan, winning 3 manufacturers' titles for the team in the mid-70s. The start of the Group B era saw the Lancia 037, a flyweight racer that looked like it could take off at any moment. It excelled on tarmac and was tamed by Walter Roll and Marco Allen, but it was 2-wheel drive. Lancia had to come up with something better. What they created was the Delta S4, probably the scariest car ever built. It had a mid-engine 4-wheel drive, a supercharger and a turbocharger. Unofficial figures claimed the S4 could accelerate from 0 to 100 kilometers an hour on gravel in just just 2.5 seconds.
LS4 was a particular car, you know, was a car not easy to drive. I have in my eyes still the image of the driver coming out of the car after some special stages. I don't want to say terrorized, but not really relaxed, you know.
The premature ending to Group B meant the S4 never really showed its full potential, winning just 4 events, including a 1-2 in its first ever outing, the RAC in 1985. But the S4 wasn't an easy car to tame, and few drivers enjoyed its ride.
Because the car with this power is a car difficult to drive, and that's why not all the drivers immediately they entered in feeling with the car. They only Henry was able to do this. He came out of the car after stages with his normal face that would be with another car. You know, when the other drivers, I saw in their eyes something that was not really totally relaxing.
For its sheer jaw-dropping, bone-shaking beastliness, the Lancia Delta S4 stands apart. After the end of Group B, Lancia went on to produce the Delta Integrale, undoubtedly a more successful car.
Well, Lancia, we have to remember that, you know, we have the great hero with the Lancia Delta, with the different model for-wheel drive, the Integrale, and so on. So to win a 6 consecutive title in the history of the rally is something that should still to be repeated, and I think it will take a long time before to be repeated.
But it wasn't just the cars that made Lancia so special, it was their team spirit.
Well, it was a fantastic year, it was a fantastic team. It was a combination of many elements, you know, the driver, the team, the management, the mechanics, the engineering, all together. We were like a family, you know, and this, I think, was our power, you know. This has created a big team that I think will stay in the memory of the rally for a long, long time.
When people talk about their love of rallying, all the senses are affected. Visually, the cars stimulate. The smells of petrol, oil, mud, and brake fluid to some act as an aphrodisiac. Inside the cars, the rumble and vibration give a sense of their power. And then, there's the noise.
There's only one car, and that's the Mark II Escort, a 2-litre BDA. As far as I'm concerned, I mean, it was just music to my ears. There's no, to this day, there's no rally car sounds anywhere near as good as what that did when you're out, even spectating as a spectator in the middle of the forest at midnight. The noise was just incredible, and to actually drive one, I mean, you got the same buzz from driving the thing as well.
But this engine was really so beautiful in the mountain, in the forest. It was crying like a lion. Beautiful, beautiful engine. The public, the French, the Corsican public, was so happy to hear this car. It was when this car was coming, it was really fantastic.
An Audi Quattro going through a forest where it makes this great noise, especially in the overrun where things were chittering and banging and popping, and it was to stand in the middle of a forest at 3 o'clock in the morning as we used to do and hear one of those things coming from about 10 k's away was just astonishing.
Then everyone was a bit less conscious about decibels, and you know, there was a lot more open exhaust and carburetor and induction noise. So to listen to one being driven to its limit through a forest is unbelievable.
With Group B back, where next for rallying? Enter the Japanese. Join us for that after the break. Welcome back to WRC's Greatest Cars. After Group E's technical creativity and unrestrained, almost unrestrainable power proved to be a fatal combination, Group A was abruptly brought into service the following year. It was intended to be slower, more manageable, and above all, safer.
They all enjoyed driving the supercars with that sort of power, but again, I think it was a very sensible decision by the FIA at the time because, as I say, it was completely getting out of hand. And I think the one thing, the sport did suffer for a while, a few years to sort of get back, and I think it's only in the last few years again that we've really started to see, you know, world running becoming strong again.
The crucial difference was the production total. For Group B, only 200 cars had to be produced, allowing manufacturers to experiment. Group A saw the total rise to 5,000. Costs would have been astronomical if the manufacturers continued to experiment while making such a large number of cars. Overnight, the sport went from designers' fantasies to family saloons.
It seemed at the time a big step down because we'd gone from really high performance cars to a very much a production based formula, and initially the cars felt slow. The first time I went out with David Llewellyn in the Group A car, we turned to one another and started laughing. We couldn't believe how slow this car felt. But in time, the cars developed and got better, and there came a point when ultimately they were quicker than the Group B cars, simply because chassis, transmission, engine management, tyres, all those things moved on, and they became a very effective car.
The Toyota Celica was one of the few cars that could slip from Group B to Group A fairly easily. The new rules suited the Japanese manufacturer, who had long preferred rally cars that were closely related to their showroom models. And in collaboration with German Ove Anderson and the Toyota Team Europe, they would be a force to be reckoned with throughout the early 90s.
That was an incredible car and such a simple machine. Huge power, massive suspension travel, and very simple and strong. And an incredible driver, Bjorn Waldegard, Juha Kankinen, all at the wheel, incredible.
And of course, King Carlos Sainz. It gave the Spaniard his two drivers' titles, 1990 and 1992, as well as helping Juha Kankinen to the last of his 4 drivers' titles in 1993. Didier Auriol completed the hat-trick for Toyota in 94. Another Japanese manufacturer that had been on the fringes of rallying but hadn't made a real splash until the 90s and the Group A era was Mitsubishi. The late 90s were dominated by this team and one man, Tommi Mäkinen.
Tommy obviously was an exceptional talent, and at Mitsubishi we were very lucky to have him on board. But I would say he and the car grew together.
And the car, 6 evolutions of the Mitsubishi Lancer.
It was a very straightforward car, but very well developed, a joint venture between Japan and Rally Art in Rugby. It was strong, it was reliable, it was set up in such a way that Tommi Mäkinen could drive it in his particular style. Not every driver could drive that car so well, but it was basically a very sound car. It won rallies on speed and reliability. I think overall the fact that Tommy won 4 successive championships just shows how good that car was.
Mäkinen's first win for Mitsubishi came at home on the 1995 Thousand Lakes, and his rise to stardom was rapid. His first title came only a year after that first World Championship win.
Tommy developed as a driver and became very competitive. The car developed alongside him, and I suppose you could say was developed very much for him. It suited his style of driving. Mitsubishi could make the car strong enough to put up with his way of driving the car, which was, you know, quite tough. But it won him a lot of rallies, and the two of them grew together, I believe.
It was formidable, and it was formidable only in Tommi Mäkinen's hands. I think Tommy made that car, and the other drivers that came along all struggled with it. So, yes, a great car, but only in one man's hands.
When Tommi Mäkinen won his 4th straight crown in 1999, he made rally history. Only his teen idol, Juha Kankinen, had won 4 titles, but Tommy was the first to take all 4 titles in consecutive years.
With Mitsubishi, they had a very homely, compact team that was able to pull it all together quite quickly and to build the team around Tommy and to make the car work very well.
If you ask pretty much anyone under the age of 21 to name, describe or point out a rally car, this is more than likely what he'd be thinking of, the Subaru Impreza. Whilst other cars have won more championships and more rallies, this is still the one car which somehow seems to evoke everything, the magic and mastery of rallying over the past 15 years.
The coolest car was the two-door Impreza. Like, I think that's, I think maybe it's the P2000, like big guards, big spoilers, cool-looking car. I think that's got to be it.
It did change the way of modern rallying. When it came out, there was nothing really to compete with it. In the days when Colin was driving it, it was so far in advance of everything else. Iconic car. It's been the same colour. It's got this sort of cult following with the colour. All the team wears the same, people buying the shirts and so on. Fantastic car. It's made us world champion. It made us runner-up in the World Championship 3 times as well. And we've got a lot to thank the Impreza for. It is a fantastic car.
Subaru's grassroots were in engineering. From planes to trains to buses. And their automobiles were more likely to be found on the farm than in motorsport.
There was lots of analogies drawn with, you know, Subaru and the farmer's vehicle and everything, but I think the real step started from the 90s onwards, the early 90s, when we started with the Legacy. And David Richards heading the team and taking it all forward. The team had a very young culture because we were taking young drivers and we had experienced drivers, but the younger drivers were always pushing and the team was quite young.
In the early 90s, the Japanese manufacturer approached the rally preparation outfit ProDrive to produce a car for both road and rally. After a brief and successful period with the Legacy, 1993 saw the birth of the Impreza, and it almost won its debut event at the hands of Ari Vatanen.
It's been iconic. It's been the whole concept, the Boxer engine. Nobody else uses a Boxer engine. You know, this very, very low centre of gravity, the transmission system.
When it did win its first event in Greece the following year, it marked the start of something very special. Let's go back to 1995, and with Carlos Sainz and a young Colin McRae behind the wheel, the Subaru was dominant. Its superiority forcefully demonstrated when it swept the top 3 places on 2 successive rallies. An amazing feat. And especially when you consider they were 2 very different events, the fast sweeping tarmac curves of Spain and the mud, sweat and tears of the RAC rally in the UK.
You know, Colin really was a lot to do with it as well. It really showed the car off for, you know, just how it worked and handled, and he was a great scene to watch on the stage, and his antics. And a lot of the other drivers as well were very good in the car, and we had lots of good strong results. And we seemed to dominate for quite a while. You know, the team was very young and fresh, and it was like a fresh look in the rally. You know.
The Impreza in both Group A and WRC4 won 3 consecutive manufacturers' titles in 95, 96 and 97, and gave Colin McRae, Richard Burns,
you're the best in the world,
and Petter Solberg their championship crowns. And the best bit about it?
I think it's the fact that you can nearly buy the same car on the street, and like some of my mates have got WRXs, and like it's not such a different car to what I race, so it's pretty cool, and like they're good fun to drive.
Your road car is almost the same, or it's exactly the same layout. You can't buy a four-wheel drive turbocharged Ford Focus, for instance, but I think that's another reason why the Impreza has been so popular and so successful, is you can actually go in the showroom, buy a blue one with gold wheels, Boxer engine, exactly the same layout as the rally car. So probably that's one of the biggest reasons it's been so popular.
The Impreza has become iconic. The blue and yellow paintwork, the huge spoilers, the air vents. And as modern technology takes rally into people's homes in all types of guises, the Impreza will be imprinted on their minds for many years to come.
I think it's quite important that you keep a true identity in the championship. It doesn't confuse people, and it relates directly to that. And obviously, it's marketing, people think of all these things, but you know, everyone relates when they see blue. They think Subaru. It's just embedded in everyone's minds now.
So all the time try to make a nice design, make a nice car, and keep their design, the same color for many years. And also that makes a big influence on the history of cars.
Most children have heard of a Subaru Impreza, and I think with all the games with Colin McRae, PlayStation, all that sort of thing, that really brought it on as well. So everyone relates. If you say rally, they say Subaru Impreza.
So, the Subaru Impreza, possibly one of the most iconic rally cars ever made. And have you ever wondered what it looks like from behind the windscreen? Well, one man that knows all about how that feels is Chris Atkinson. And we caught up with him earlier this year to show you around.
I'm Chris Atkinson from the Subaru World Rally team. Today I'm going to show you through my office the Subaru Impreza World Rally Car 2006. Hope you enjoy the show. Okay, here we go, hopping into the car. It's not as easy as a road car to get into. Obviously we've got the roll cage and then deep bucket seats. A lot of differences obviously between the road car and this car. Two of the biggest ones you can see here, both the handbrake lever and the gear shift, totally different to a normal car. Normally you'd have a gear shift here, but we've actually got a handbrake lever which helps us do handbrake turns in tricky situations, or if we're going too fast to a corner we can quickly pull it and it'll get us out of an understeer or something like that. Also we've got the gear shift here, which is a lot easier than a normal road car. We just pull up, you can do it with one finger if you want, and that will shift up gears and push away to go down gears. You don't have to use a clutch or anything like that. You can stay full throttle and just keep pulling up gears, which is quite good fun. It's easy to drive. As you can see here, this is the steering wheel of the Impreza World Rally car. It's actually made of carbon fibre, so it's lightweight, which is good for the centre of gravity and that, because it's quite up high. Also there's a lot of buttons here. Quite simple to use really. We've just got a washer and wipe and a marker button, which helps the engineers. If we have a problem with the car, we can press that red button and that will put a mark in the data. And the other two are just for our headlights and our launch control, which we use at the start line. Generally during the stage you don't use them much, just the washer, but Glenn's also got them on his side, so he can use them if we have some mud come on the windscreen or something like that. Obviously a lot of controls here that are different to a road car as well. We've got a lot of circuit breakers, which we've got to put all these in. We've got a system when we start the car, and then once we're going on the stage as well. So we put all of them in, and hopefully they all stay in and we have no problems. When we're talking about the start of a stage, firstly we've got a gear selection device here, which is obviously different to a car again. We've got a road mode and a stage mode and reverse, and obviously neutral. So obviously put the clutch in and then select either road or stage depending what we're going to do, and then drive off and use the gears. Another switch which is very important at the start of the stage is the anti-lag switch, and this gives us instant response. So you don't want to run with this when you're driving along slowly, because it builds up an enormous amount of heat in the turbo, but we turn it on at the start of the stage, usually onto 3 the maximum, and go flat out. It gives great response, and you can let the car go really slow and then hit the throttle and you've got full boost, which is amazing to drive. From this angle you can see we're sitting a long way back as well. We're back here with the B pillar, which is nearly halfway in the back seat, and that means the steering wheel and the pedals are all brought this way, and this helps with the centre of gravity. We're sitting low and far back, so the car's nice and balanced, and this all helps with performance. Just some other small features, obviously the safety thing is a big thing. You've got a massive roll cage, huge amounts of tube all throughout the car, and then the seats with these special head devices and 5-point harnesses as well to hold us in tight so we don't move. As you can see, when we're going over big jumps and things like that, it's quite tricky, and you can get thrown around, but this holds us in place well, and it means we can keep focused on the road.
60. 60, keep right on crest, then short left, and 7 right and short left.
Okay, as you can see from this angle, we're sitting quite low in the car again, down low with the steering wheel as well. Another point on the steering wheel is the surface. It's made of a special felt material which matches the gloves, so if we hit a rock or want to throw the car into the corner, we've got good grip. Another special feature of these cars is the felt on the dash here, which helps with the sunlight coming in. There's no glare. On a normal dash you'd get glare into your eyes, but with this felt it nullifies the glare, and then you can see the road and have no problems driving.
6 right, cross open, 40. Late 6 right on crest, leads them up very long, 5 left opens, caution brake, crest, 7 right.
As you can see from this angle again, the pedals are a long way back, but Generally the setup's the same as a normal road car. You've got your throttle, brake and then clutch. Generally the only two we care about are obviously the throttle and the brake. The brake's a lot bigger than a normal brake pedal, and it's also a lot harder to push. This gives you better feedback and better feel. Generally you use our left foot to brake and our right foot to use the throttle, and don't worry about the clutch. The clutch is just for road sections and just for stopping at traffic lights, otherwise we don't use it. So that's how they work. But I hope you enjoyed the time in my Subaru Impreza World Rally car.
So proof then, if needed, of just how technologically advanced these machines are. From the outside, they may look similar to a road car, but under the skin, they're anything but. After the break, the force is with France in the WRC era. Don't go away. Welcome back to WRC's Greatest Cars. 1997 saw a motorsport revolution. The FIA created World Rally Cars, a fundamental break from rallying's past, producing technical rules which were much closer to a racing-type formula. WRC cars have to be based on their road-going counterparts, with at least 25,000 having to be produced, but that's as far as it goes. The road cars don't have to be four-wheel drive or turbocharged. Designers can cut holes in floor plans, add aerofoils, flared wheel arches and so on. This means World Rally cars are easier to produce, and as a result, this has heralded an era of unprecedented technological innovation. The format reached a peak in 2001 with manufacturer entries from Peugeot, Ford, Subaru, Mitsubishi, Skoda and Hyundai, while Citroën debuted the new Sara. The last decade has witnessed some terrific title fights, and the World Rally car has certainly proved a popular formula.
It's a different era now. Obviously there's more technology and things have moved on. I mean, not just in electronics, but I mean sort of weight distribution and four-wheel drive. So I think it doesn't matter what car you drive. I mean, if you're a competitive driver, it doesn't matter whether it's two-wheel drive, four-wheel drive, you will always have tremendous fun if you're a driver. I mean, it doesn't matter what you drive, it's the thrill of actually driving them and being competitive.
The World Rally cars are, from today, are very nice cars. Doesn't matter if it's the Peugeot, Citroën or whatever I drive before. I'm quite happy to be in a World Rally car. Not many people can say this, and I wish to stay every minute in that cars, and I think the cars today are the nicest one.
It's the state-of-the-art rally car and the last development of what engineers can do in WRC, so that's make it fun.
The WRC is a very good compromise between because the car is safety, and then very spectacular for the spectator, and I think it's a very good compromise for the moment.
The cars, they've been developing so much now during the years, and we are going faster and faster all the time, even though rules change, but engineers they are quite wise, so we always find some speed. Sometimes you just go through the corners, you don't even kind of realize it. It's really amazing how fast you can go.
When it comes to picking classic machines from the World Rally car era, there have certainly been plenty of obvious candidates. After the success of the Celica, the innovative Toyota Corolla saw the Japanese manufacturer claim 4 wins in '98 and '99. While Subaru's Impreza continued its fine run into the WRC period, powering Richard Burns and Petter Solberg to championship glory, and claiming a manufacturer's title in the category's first year in 1997. Meanwhile, the Ford Focus has gone from strength to strength since it debuted in 1999. Still going strong after 8 years, it has 28 wins to its name, and in 2006, the team achieved their first manufacturer's title since their 1979 success with the Escort. For much of the last 10 years, though, it's been the French teams who've dominated. Peugeot returned to the WRC in '99 with the stylish-looking 206. While the car proved a little too fragile to win in its first season, it was immediately on the pace, and the team didn't have to wait too long for the car's maiden victory. Marcus Grönholm achieved his and the car's first win in Sweden 2000. Grönholm claimed the driver's title in 2000 and 2002, while Peugeot won back-to-back manufacturers' championships in 2000, 2001 and 2002.
Came on the right time. We had a good team. The car was very good, new things on it, and the size of the car was perfect. At that time it was the best car.
When it came to the rallies 99, I think it was a little bit ahead of time compared to the other cars. It was very small and handy. We just happened to get a good chance in proper timing to drive that car, and everything seemed to be very good. And it was very easy car to drive.
Not to be outdone by its PSA stablemate, Citroën 2 soon rejoined the sport. The journey started with surprise victories in Catalonia and Corsica with the F2 kit car. Once the Zara World Rally car made its debut in 2001, it was clear it would be a winner. The Zara had an incredible record of reliability, and with the all-conquering Sebastian Loeb behind the wheel, Citroën took over domination of the Manufacturers' Championship from Peugeot, with the Zara claiming 32 wins and their own treble success from 03 to 05, while Loeb himself became a 3-time Drivers' Champion. After a sabbatical in 2006, Citroën have returned again, this time replacing the dominant Zara with the all-new C4. And with Loeb immediately back to winning ways, this stylish-looking machine is already looking like a classic in the making.
It's a fantastic car in every condition, the engine, suspension, handling, and everything is very fun.
From those wooden-panelled early adventures with motorised transport to these monsters of motorsport, rally's powerful beasts. Not just rally's greatest, let's be honest, they're quite simply some of the world's greatest cars.